Time focused on the price of Bitcoin and making wild predictions as to where it's going to go and focusing on what's happening in the United States. Cryptocurrency is actually being adopted slowly, country by country, all over the world, with one notable country making a big move today that I haven't heard anybody talking about. Yago and I are going to break that down and everything else going on in the market and industry. And of course, Dan from Chart Guys on the back end. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of Wall Streets. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Going to go ahead and bring on Yago now. Thanks for showing up. I know you're a bit under the weather.
So it always lifts my spirit to see you, Scott. So
thank you. I've been compared to penicillin in the past, actually, healing energy.
You've been compared to a bacterial infection.
They've compared me to the COVID vaccine, highly effective at stopping things. Anyways, here we go. We have this topic: Bitcoin's wild ride. The world is quietly adopting crypto, country by country. I would not have even seen this story unless my producer sent it to me, Misha, this morning. And I think it's actually really interesting. Bolivia turns to crypto for energy imports amid dollar fuel shortages. So here you go. Bolivia's state energy firm YPFB will use cryptocurrency to pay for energy imports amid a painful shortage of dollars and fuel in a landlocked South American nation, a company spokesperson and government official told Reuters on Wednesday. Listen, we've heard a lot about BRICS and people trying to get off the dollar and doing trade in other currencies or using crypto, but this is one of those cases of necessity, seemingly, right? It's impossible to get dollars, basically, in a country like Bolivia, and they have a fuel shortage. And this is actually how they're going to solve that.
Well, look, I mean, this raises a lot of questions. First of all, if you can't get dollars, how can you get crypto, right? So why do they have greater accessibility to crypto? What crypto exactly are they going to be using? Usually when you have a dollar shortage, it's effectively a shortage of all assets. So it's very interesting that they're looking to do this, and that this is being reported by Reuters. The other really interesting question is, who are they buying energy from that is willing to accept crypto? And because in any transaction there are at least two parties. And so this is not just Bolivia making use of crypto, it's some other parties as well. And we know that other countries have been, some of them unsavory countries like Russia or Iran, have been willing to contemplate the sale of petrochemicals and fuels for foreign exchange in crypto. We also know that there was a significant money laundering ring broken up a couple of weeks ago, where Russian persons, mostly oligarchs, were purchasing stable coins on Russian exchanges and then selling them for dollars that were being accumulated by South American drug cartels. So there are all kinds of use cases here, and how exactly these are integrating is interesting. Bolivia is potentially a country which is involved in the narco traffic trade.
On top of that, you mentioned Russia. So we have Russian central bank proposing wealthy individuals be allowed to invest in crypto. This is one of those sort of nation state stories. But I did, a bit of digging. Russia's been one of those countries where if you don't keep up, the news reverses every month, right? Like China and India, you never know what's going on. But Russia has a ton of mining, obviously. We know that there's actually mining likely by the government or control of those. They also, I know, have been using Bitcoin and other digital currencies for international payments since December 2024. At least they announced it. So Russia could be the likely candidate here for exchanging crypto. Not a surprise that the countries that are probably on the outs with the United States would be most likely to use either stable coins, Bitcoin, or other crypto for this type of transaction.
Well, the list of countries that are on the outs with the United States is growing all the time. There are tariffs being slapped on Mexico, on Canada, on Australia. It seems like we're starting from the US traditional allies rather than from its enemies. But this overall is part of a bigger trend that we're seeing everywhere. And I think one of the powerful things of the Trump presidency is that it's sort of making all of this explicit, which is that the sort of post-World War II international order is fraying. A big part of that post-war era and that order was Bretton Woods and dollar primacy, which, if not disappearing, is at least morphing, and dollar-denominated stablecoins are starting to play a much more significant role. And so in an environment where sovereigns cannot trust each other and are not well aligned, and right now Europe is not well aligned with the US, Canada is not well aligned with the US, and they're not well aligned with each other, the necessity to have credibly neutral systems of transaction becomes so much more important. And so you couple that with the fact that the US is now effectively bringing Bitcoin into and stablecoins into the regulated envelope, and even sort of canonizing them as crucial strategic assets. I think we're on the cusp of very, very rapid change, where crypto goes from being sort of like this niche speculative alternative to becoming more and more central to the way everyone transacts, including governments.
It was either yesterday or the day before at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, I think 2 days ago, that Lummis stood up and said she was refiling the Strategic Reserve Bill. Obviously, you and I have not even had a chance to talk about the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve because it happened Thursday afternoon last week after we had already talked. But that's an executive order. We all know that those can be reversed by the next president, depending on what happens. But if we actually get it canonized in the law, it would be very, very different. And she said that President Trump fully supported her bill, including the purchase of 1 million Bitcoin. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but she said it. I mean, if the United States is even talking about buying 1 million Bitcoin, the idea is even being floated, you'd have to imagine that's putting pressure on the rest of the world to consider this.
Yeah, I think it's complicated, right? I don't think that just because the US is floating the idea that all of the countries in the rest of the world are immediately going to go and start buying Bitcoin. They have the same sort of bureaucratic hurdles that the US has. That said, countries with existing sovereign wealth funds, countries that have autocratic leaders, they do have an advantage. They can move much more quickly. So we already know that they have been moving, right? I mean, today, the news that comes out of Gulf states, just on an increasing basis, I don't know how much you've experienced this, but Dubai has basically become the new crypto hub. I don't think there's a city in the world right now
crazy
which has more leaders and entrepreneurs in this industry than Dubai. And Abu Dhabi now have announced a $2 billion investment in Binance. Almost certainly this is in the lead up to Binance being floated on their stock exchange. They're going to be looking, it could very quickly become the largest publicly traded company on the Abu Dhabi exchange and really put the Abu Dhabi exchange on the map. We could be talking about a $200 billion valuation. Likely they invested at significantly less than that and are going to see good upside. But there's more than one way in which this industry is starting to become crucial, critical, and large enough to actually move markets, right? It's become a major economy for a global finance hub like Dubai and Abu Dhabi. It's strategically important to them. That's a big difference.
That's right. That was going to be my next sort of comment and question is Binance obviously doesn't need $2 billion, right? They're the most cash flush, one of the most cash flush companies probably on the planet. So they're only doing this because of some sort of access or future plan. Now, MGX is not the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, but it is owned by the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund. So semantics. This is the government, right? To some degree, effectively finding a way to put $2 billion into Binance. That's a lot of money. And it was paid in a stable coin, which makes it obviously also one of the largest sort of crypto transactions, lending to what we were talking about before with nation states doing that. I mean, it's crazy. I interviewed Richard Tang, the CEO of Binance, for the first time on Tuesday, and then this announcement came out right after, and I didn't get to even like discuss it with him at all. But it's,
I mean, you're
I'm like right ahead of everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I find this to be absolutely huge news. I
It
really do.
Yeah, and the thing is that this is a really interesting thing, right? People are very worried about the price right now. The fact that we have Bitcoin at around $80,000 is such a gift. I've managed to scrounge out some more fiat to buy some more Bitcoin. It's a
Been
huge
hard.
opportunity because you just look at and I remember late 2020 felt the same way. There was just one piece of news after another. It was very obvious, right? The fastest horse, Paul, what was his
Paul
name?
Tudor Jones.
Paul Tudor Jones, right? And then Paul Tudor Jones and El Salvador and Tesla, were all strong indicators, and the market hadn't really become over exuberant yet at that point, and very, very quickly after that did. So it just feels to me very similar to what we've seen in the past. But the things are bigger now, they're more real, they're vastly more significant, and the beat just keeps marching on.
Yeah, I mean, a few other countries here with news that just kind of went unnoticed. Vietnam pushes for crypto adoption. Colombia is eyeing a new bill. Brazil to regulate stablecoins in 2025. In Georgia, crypto is used for payments in Georgia, not to get rich. Tbilisi Crypto City Guide. It's talking about the small-time crypto exchanges that are essentially money changers with a Binance account. In my conversation with Richard, I was mind blown. It was either 240 or 260 million customers that Binance has. I mean, think about that. 260 million customers on the exchange. And so I asked him, are these traders or are these people that are doing exactly this? They open a Binance account because they want to send their friend $10. And I think most of it is probably the latter.
It's probably the largest financial and probably most profitable financial. I don't know if most profitable. Tether might be the most profitable financial company in the world right now.
Certainly per employee.
And then in terms of volumes, Binance is certainly one of the largest. In terms of customers, it might be the largest in the world. And so think about that, right? We've got these they're still privately traded, but these are companies that should be larger than any bank, or probably are already larger and should be valued as larger than pretty much any other bank or traditional financial system institution in the world. And so, that people say crypto hasn't created anything, but it is creating some of the largest and most profitable companies in the world, and certainly the largest and most profitable companies in the financial space. Binance is larger than Stripe.
It's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy, and people don't realize it because it's not U.S. based or publicly traded, right? But I have a feeling it may be publicly traded. You mentioned the probably bigger company, which is Tether. I found this article amazing. First, most traded cryptocurrency emerges from shadows during U.S. Goodwill Tour. And I was like, wow, what a clickbait, great title. But then I dug down into it, and there's been pictures of Paolo all over Washington at the summits and at the meetings. But I had no idea this is his first trip ever to the United States.
Yeah.
He at no point before this felt he could come to the United States without the threat or fear of being arrested, he said in a statement talking with Cantor Fitzgerald. And now he's literally on the road show with, the Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce as his backer. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. It really, I mean, that's another thing. Like, I left the US 10 years ago, and now I'm thinking of going back. Same reason. It's like, it was terrifying if you were working in this industry. I don't know how you did it, right? But being in this industry and visiting the US was scary. Despite not having done anything,
I still don't know what we're allowed to do or not do, to be quite honest. So obviously
Exactly.
the environment is exponentially better because they've basically because the SEC has erased all of the ridiculous enforcement actions. but we still do need clarity on what's okay, right? Like I still don't think that I would feel comfortable like launching off a meme coin personally,
I think
token.
well, meme coins actually are probably pretty safe, but
depending on what happens after you launch it and where the money goes and the structure. But I'm just saying, just because Trump did it, to me, is not like legal clarity on everybody can go do everything.
Oh no, definitely not. I think the way most smart players are treating this right now, from what I'm seeing, is that people are willing to be a little bit more relaxed about doing business in the US, but most of the sort of like the common sense restrictions have not abated, right? So US exchanges are still not listing projects that have recently raised. Most platforms are still doing KYC and denying US participation. Obviously, people are trying to avoid issuing obvious securities and or participating in fraud unless they're all in on crime season. And so I think while the fear is somewhat reduced, most of the cautionary activity is still the behavior within crypto of entrepreneurs, of builders, and of projects hasn't changed that much and is unlikely to change until there is some degree of regulatory clarity.
Yeah, I agree. If you came back, would your behavior change in any way, shape, or form, or would you just come back because you believed it was totally safe to do whatever you want?
I don't think it's totally safe to do what you want. I think everything we've seen over the last 2 months has been by executive order, which is, basically by fiat, right? That is the original meaning of fiat. And I don't put more stake into that fiat than I do into any other fiat.
Yeah, that's my fear is everybody wants to come back. But like if the midterms go a different way, or if, Elizabeth Warren becomes president in a few years, everybody will be running for the hills again. That's why it's important that these things actually end up as law, even though those obviously can get reversed as well. I found this pretty enlightening. I don't know if you saw this, but the SEC filings containing blockchain terms hits all-time high in February. So that tells you everything you need to know about exactly what we're discussing, is that people are coming back. People are certainly coming out of the shadows and filing. I think there were 5,000 keyword mentions of blockchain-related terms in SEC filings, right? So we probably had zero by the end of the Biden administration. And now everybody who wanted to do things in crypto is actually following the come in and register that Gary Gensler always talked about.
Yeah. One of the interesting pieces of information that I've seen is that the year 2024 saw the same amount of institutional buying of BTC as all of the years, twice as much as all of the years before 2024. And in January and February of 2025, the purchasing by institutions of BTC exceeded the entire year of 2024. So there's this massive acceleration of BTC purchases by institutional players.
Yeah. I mean, are there any countries on your radar that you think could be the next for adoption? We had this period a few months ago where everyone said Qatar and Saudi Arabia. There was some evidence that those two nations were doing this. I mean, we know it's a very small nation, but I do have it. Obviously, Bhutan, tiny. But they have strategic reserves of multiple crypto assets. I believe they're mining
13,500 Bitcoin. They have they've been mining for multiple years. And they've managed it very, very. It's a pretty poor country, but it has significant BTC wealth. And now, on the basis of sales of crypto, they're actually building a new and pretty gorgeous airport.
Is that true? I didn't know that was on crypto related. I mean, it's been so clear to me, like what these small nations can do by simply having some sort of Bitcoin adoption. I mean, El Salvador obviously is now like in the throes of a war with the IMF over their, 1.4 or $1.3 billion loan, however much it is. Clearly still buying Bitcoin though. They don't seem particularly scared, even though it could affect their loan. But I mean, El Salvador, it could be because of the leader or the environment, but since adopting Bitcoin is a completely different country.
Yeah, 100%. It's completely turned around. It's not just the Bitcoin. I mean, there are other policy changes there which have significantly reduced crime and have allowed for greater investment in the country, and I think have improved tourism in other ways. But Bitcoin and sort of the crackdown on the gangs were the two primary things that really 180 degrees turned that country around. And if you're trying to think who's likely to do it next, I mean, I think it depends what you mean by next. I would be very surprised if there wasn't accumulation happening right now in Turkey and Russia and the Gulf states, and possibly in China. But the Czech Republic recently passed legislation removing all capital gains taxation from Bitcoin if you are a long-term holder. So long-term holder being a year plus. And there's legislation to build a reserve floating around, from what I hear, the Dutch Parliament. I would suspect that we're going to probably Eastern Europe. Czech Republic is a good candidate for starting to see countries replicating or trying to front run the reserve goal. Argentina is another strong candidate. Israel might be a strong candidate. So I don't know, but certainly, and Liechtenstein, of course, although Liechtenstein is very, very small. So
still counts. Still counts. I count them all, man. I'll count them all. Listen, so before I let you go, you got your BitcoinOS hat on. With all of this in mind, obviously, you're basically building an operating system that will allow anyone to build anything that they want on Bitcoin, right? It's kind of infrastructure. How much, as that accelerates, will that affect this sort of nation state and institutional adoption, when it's not only buying Bitcoin, because that's amazing, we're all happy about that, but when they actually find ways to start using Bitcoin, right? I mean, there could be stable coins coming to Bitcoin, yield coming to Bitcoin, all these things that would make it a much easier sell, probably, as a financialized asset like most others.
Look, there's this old line that nobody gets fired for buying IBM, right? And there's no greater entity in the financial world than the US government. And so if the US government says, look, we're going to be utilizing this asset and this ledger as a strategic reserve, that's basically canonizing it as, strategically valuable, strategically trusted, right? And at the same time, we're seeing this massive acceleration of purchases by institutions of BTC. Today, roughly 31%, based on most recent study I saw, 31% of BTC is held in the hands of institutions and corporations. And so it is becoming very much an asset, not just of you and I and of sort of individuals, but also of institutions and increasingly of governments as well. And so when you think about when you think about commerce, finance, moving funds around, right, that is a network and it has network effects. And so our assumption, I think, should be that institutions are going to feel like the one place they can safely do real world assets, do bond issuances, do transactions, if it's available, is Bitcoin, because no one's going to get fired for using Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the new IBM. It's the IBM of money. And so I think we're going to see significantly more activity on the Bitcoin network, using Bitcoin as the world's global ledger and settlement mechanism, because no one's going to get fired for doing that. And I think that what we're going to see is, a lot of people are really interested in the next billion users. But I think as important is the next $10 trillion of use cases. And those are primarily going to get funneled by institutions and therefore are going to be primarily funneled into Bitcoin.
Yeah, I interviewed Sergey Nazarov from Link yesterday, and that was basically that ended up being the topic of almost the entire podcast. He was like, listen, you've got maybe 2 to 3x potential of people using crypto as it is, right? Retail users, people adopting it, sending payments, trading, whatever. And he was like, and then you have the other side, which is every asset in the world being tokenized and brought in, using the technology, which isn't like me sending you $10 in Tether or whatever. It's literally tokenizing the entire world because it's better.
Yeah.
But we want that to happen on Bitcoin.
Well, look, I mean, I think we will see it happen on a bunch of different places. One of the things that we're doing with Boss is allowing other chains to basically become Bitcoin layer twos, which I think is beneficial to everyone. Bitcoin doesn't have the execution environments, and these other chains do. They can do smart contracts, but they don't have the security, and they don't have they simply do not have the network effect or the degree of trust that Bitcoin does with users around the world, and in particular institutional users. And so I think it's by combining those different elements of crypto and utilizing Bitcoin as sort of like the hub for the rest of crypto, that crypto itself can become an internet of value rather than this disjointed island chain of isolated chains, none of which are big enough to have the heft to really replace the likes of Visa and Swift and the rest of our, aging financial infrastructure.
I really do believe it's just a matter of time, and so important for people to, like I said, like we can debate the price all we want, but for people to realize that it may be slowly but surely, but this, will remain the technology of the future. This is where everything, the puck is moving.
I mean, look, in terms of price, let's end on a because I was thinking about this. I did the calculation yesterday. Let's say we're conservative, and I believe this is conservative. Let's say it takes 10 years for Bitcoin to go to $1 million, right? So 2035, Bitcoin finally hits $1 million. I think that's a very conservative outlook. What would be your compound annual growth? It would be 38%.
Which is funny because I just saw an article about how bad CAGR compound annual growth has been for Bitcoin all of a sudden because of this dip. When you go from a certain date to an exact certain date.
So if you can anticipate sort of the bare minimum of how much you would grow your assets by just holding them in Bitcoin every year for the next 10 years to be close to 40%, you're outperforming the stock market by between
like 4x,
4 and 6 times. Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, screw all this trading. Just buy and hold Bitcoin for 10 years. You're fine.
I wholeheartedly agree, which is why now we'll let you go, and then we'll talk to a trader.
All right.
Yago, everybody give Yago a follow, man. Thank you as always. I appreciate you showing up sick.
All right, cheers. Bye.
All right, man, have a good one. And before we jump to Dan really quickly, obviously we have an awesome sponsor here. Look, we got the ticker. Oh, I was going to scroll. It's got to scroll there. Watch. It's going to scroll. It's got to scroll. Come on. It's not working. My banner's supposed to scroll. Is it going to scroll now? It's not scrolling. Anyways, we have we're going to just put the banner up there. I can edit it. Oh, watch this. I'm going to do it. It's going to work. I can feel it. It's not working. Anyways, LBANK, as you can see, talking about trading, they are a no KYC global exchange, one of the largest in the world, and we're fortunate enough to have them as an incredible sponsor. As you can see, there's a referral bonus of up to 250 USDT with no KYC on the exchange, $20 USDT bonus for signing up. You can get basically all your trading fees back by trading on there. They have almost every pair you could ever want, 1,000+ trading pairs. And like I said, available everywhere in the world. I will figure out how to make that thing scroll. But check out LBANK. You can see the link right down below. And now we've got Dan from Chart Guys. We were just saying, you just buy and hold it, but you're a trader. You trade.
Both. You can do both. I do both. So
why not both? It's the little Asian girl meme. Why not both? But while we're talking about that, we're obviously in the midst of a correction here, or seemingly nothing but good news for Bitcoin, but uncertainty in other markets. And I think that's obviously rocking everybody at the moment, not really knowing what to do.
Yeah, just a note on the theme of investment in Binance. While you were talking there, we got some headlines. Trump family has been in talks for stake in crypto exchange Binance. So
can you imagine? That's so funny. I literally asked the CEO of Binance, I was saying this on Tuesday, I was like, when are you coming to the US? He's like, we're not really thinking about that right now. It's not really on our radar. Come on, man.
Yeah, I know.
Come on.
And that's good for a little 6% spike in Binance. Nothing massive, but solid daily bounce going on in Binance right now. As we know, in the altcoin space, you got to be really picky. And there are a number of coins that have these solid bounces. And because the altcoin environment as a whole is so bearish, I do think that the US based ones are going to continue to get the attention. And you could see that XRP, we'll go back to Bitcoin in just a second, but XRP has a solid daily bounce, continuing to defend $2, and XLM is a lead bull today, up double-digit percent. So keeping an eye on the names that are outperforming in the short term. But Bitcoin, big picture, monthly. So last period of consolidation, the monthly EMA 12 held, and it was 6 months of sideways. And, I forgot how boring that was, but it was boring. And here we are on month 3, we'll call it, of consolidation. And we're testing that monthly EMA 12 again. And bulls definitely want to keep it and keep that healthy. So, as we know, the upper 70s are being defended in the short term. But it's really simple. As we know, an uptrend is a higher low and a higher high. And we have not had that since the all-time high. And so until that happens, nothing changes. And so right now in the current bounce, anything under 92.8 is just a daily lower high. And so we have to see the bulls prove to us with a daily uptrend, okay, something is now different in the short term than it has been in a while. And so really just patiently waiting for that. Aggressive bulls are positioning and, trying to grab some weakness. And if you got a long-term horizon, you're definitely DCAing in this kind of environment is way better than DCAing in euphoria, but still skeptical of bulls in the sense that I need them to prove something to me on the daily chart if we're going to start seeing an uptrend with some follow through and try and put in a longer term base of support.
I've seen a lot of people that I highly respect telling me that the bull market's over for Bitcoin. That was the high. A lot.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm always open to it, to the sense that if it is, I'm not going to get crushed. My net worth will go down. I'll get back some gains, but you just got to prepare for both. And I definitely, that's what I'm doing. Obviously, as you mentioned, what the NASDAQ has been doing. When there's fear in markets, antivirus.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna get a virus, man. You're gonna be like Yago. You got a virus for me.
When there's fear in markets, it's contagious. And speaking of virus, and that's what we have. It's just the most significant fear we've seen in markets since really July and August. And so that's fairly significant, 6 months. And
it's justified. It's like, sometimes you can't really explain it away. When it's 50%, 25%, 10% tariff all in one day. It's hard to know what markets should be doing. I saw actually PPI came in today a little bit low, kind of like CPI yesterday. So maybe that's good news.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where I try and not speculate about what Trump's doing too much, but the fact that he wasn't on that giant drop day that we had on Monday, the fact that he wasn't tweeting anything to try and calm the markets was very telling for me. Just because
he said, I don't care about the stock market.
Yeah,
he said, I'm not watching it. Yeah.
He's so impulsive on the Twitter to just be like, try and calm everything down. But he didn't do that. And so that to me means, this is part of the plan. We'll see.
So are you kind of sidelined waiting to get a little more certainty? Is there anything that you're aggressively trading? Because at least we do have volatility here.
Yeah. I day trading for sure. And again, Tesla's been going, wild back and forth. As far as swing trading, I am definitely a bit more, this drop was told me, okay, the market environment for the last 6 months is now different. And so that tells me, okay, pump the brakes with your trading. But one of the setups that I'm watching is the miners, the metal miners. I'm looking at this as a potential weekly cup and handle. This is GDX. There's also GDXJ. And this is a 13-year high. And so I'm just keeping it, gold's at all-time highs. It's a weekly bull flag. So the metal miners have my attention right now in the short term for March. But other than that, it's just patiently waiting for the broader stock market fears to calm down a bit and at least put in a bottom where we can say, all right, that's our new key level to hold for bigger picture. And we just don't have that set just yet. We're trying to put it in right now the last couple of days, not very convincing.
Yeah, this is one of those moments for me where I'm utterly confused and willing to admit that, I don't really want to play. Take the ball and go home, sit on the sidelines, because I don't know what news will do to the chart. And I don't know when news is going to drop or what it's going to be like. It's so unpredictable. I'd rather just, like I said, now my full-time strategy right now is figuring out what I can sell to buy a little more Bitcoin and hopefully, it's not the end of the bull market and to take advantage of that. I mean, that's really all I'm interested in at the moment. It's just been hard.
That's a good game plan. I mean, as I became, a trader for longer and longer, I realized a lot of full-time trading is knowing when to pump the brakes and be patient and not over trade in less than favorable trading environments.
Yeah. And this is, it is, like you said, for day trading, it's great, but I'm not at my screen 24/7 paying attention. So for me, it's just, I have pretty high conviction that Bitcoin will be a much higher price than it is at some point in the future. So I'm going to buy it. That's, and if it's I bought some at 77, if I could have gotten it at 74 at some point, okay, I'll live, right? It's fine.
Nothing wrong with that game plan.
Yeah, man. Well, I got to run and go on Sirius XM radio. Very exciting. Who knows how much coping I'll have to do on behalf of the crypto market there today, because that's what happens every time we go on the media when the prices are down. But everybody give Dan Chart Guys a follow. Always love what you do. He has so much more content than the 10 minutes we spend here together. So please, guys, check all of that out. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here. See you next week.
All right. Thanks, Scott.
All right, man. Bye.
Let's go.